Greetings, greetings. Welcome to this session entitled What a Friend We Have in Technology, Part 1. We're going to take 2 sessions to dive into some great technology tools that I believe will greatly impact your ministry in a mighty way. My name is Timothy Farmer, and I have the great pleasure of serving as your presenter for these 2 sessions. So before we begin, in the first session, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Hampton University Ministers Conference and Choir Directors and Organists Guild for this wonderful opportunity. I am extremely humbled to have been chosen for this opportunity to share some great technology tools with those who will be watching this session. I hail from the great state of Georgia, the Peach State, from the wonderful city of Atlanta, and I have a unique ministry opportunity to serve in ministry at the Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church, where the Reverend Dr. William A. Flippin is the senior pastor. And also I work in ministry at Cascade United Methodist Church, where the Reverend Dr. Kevin Muriel serves as the pastor. With that said, let us begin with a word of prayer. Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this opportunity to gather in this virtual space. And even as we connect virtually, we know that your omnipresence is with us, and you can be in all places at all times, even online, and your presence is indeed felt in this space. I thank you for all of those who will watch this session, these 2 sessions on technology for ministry. Thank you for their willingness. Thank you for their faithfulness in the ministries to which they serve. I pray for both those who are proficient in technology, and I pray for those who have some apprehensions about technology, those who are afraid to flip a switch or to click a button. I pray for all of those who are involved in ministry that we will use these tools to advance your kingdom, not only in this space, but even beyond the pandemic, that we will be the people of God that you've called us to be. I pray for every home that's represented in the viewership of these 2 sessions, that they will be of love, peace, and understanding. And in all things, we'll be careful to give you all glory and praise. It's in the matchless and mighty name of Jesus we pray. Amen. What a friend we have in technology. Of course, we know the song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And just a spin on that song, a very familiar hymn, is taking that and transitioning it to what a friend we have in technology, because it is indeed our friend, because it helps us to be more effective, to be more efficient, for us to begin to use ways to cut down on some of, I think, the minutia that slows down processes, that slow down effective ministry. So we're going to connect in several ways with some tools that I believe will help us to grow in ministry. With that being said, we have 2 sessions that we're going to dive in. This first session will be more on tools to help with communication and making connections both internally and externally. And then we'll also dive into some tools for worship planning and worship execution. Now, most of the tools that I'll share are free 99. That's my favorite cost, free 99, where you can use these tools for free, or several of them that I'll share do have a nominal cost, but from my perspective, the cost is worth it, even for the minor fee that you'll incur to use the tool. But again, most of the tools will be free for you to use to advance your ministry. So I want to begin with just kind of diving into the place to which many of us last year came to a halt as it relates to what ministry looked like, or that which we were accustomed. For me, that date was March 15th, 2020. March 15th, 2020. As you see in this video on the screen, this was on that date, March 15th, And this was the last Sunday that we worshiped in person. And as you see, the choir is leading the congregation in worship in a powerful way. And little did we know that soon thereafter, the decision would be made for us to halt in-person worship as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm sure all of us have a date, or all of us have a place or a memory about how we thought about what that would look like. Many of us, like those at my ministry context, were nervous, anxious, unsure about how we would proceed to keep people connected, continue in ministry, continue to provide worship opportunities that would still be engaging and allow for people to make contributions, to give, for those who are in music ministry to still provide quality music for a virtual worship environment. So we're going to talk a lot about several of those tools that have helped us along the way, and I hope that they will be a blessing to you. So speaking of technology, for me, I always start off with a little bit of technology history for ministry. And in many regards, it's misunderstood that technology for ministry is something that's relatively new, especially now that many ministries that weren't using technology before are using it more often to make their ministries happen and to keep their church services and their church operations going. But ministry technology is not anything new. And I want you to take a look at this diagram in my Church Technology 101 virtual ministry of Jesus example. You see two pie charts here, one for the appearances of Jesus Christ. Over 93% of his appearances were not in the physical worship space. Jesus' ministry was all about reaching out beyond the four walls of the church and using innovative ways of which to do that. And we find in the Bible that over 87% of the parables to which Jesus spoke were about things that dealt with the agricultural industry of the time, which was the IT industry. So keeping that in mind, as Jesus was using examples that included the means of technology of that time and connecting with people outside of what was the traditional worship space, allows us to see that we have an opportunity based on this example for our ministries to not be bound to, of course, many of us have had to learn that quickly, to not be bound to the four walls as we've had to pivot to a virtual space, but to continue to think creatively and innovatively using technology, as that is not anything new. And now we have, outside of what was available during Jesus's earthly ministry, we have tools that much further has the opportunity to much further our ministries beyond that which was available during Jesus's ministry. So just keep that in mind as you prepare, or as even if you're apprehensive or are concerned about using technology in the church. It indeed is nothing new, and it is our responsibility to further advance that. So several ways to which we can keep people connected and also use technology for worship planning and execution will allow for our sessions to unfold in two ways. So part one will be connecting people with tools and strategies, and this will involve both tools that are beneficial for internal connections as well as external, and just some general technology tools. And then part two, the second session, will connect us with worship planning and tools for execution of worship. So let's dive right into some of our tools for internal connections for ministry. What you're going to see on the screen momentarily is a document that I'll share a link in session 2 that has all of the links for the tools that I'll share, and I'll give you the access to be able to get this document. And the great thing about this technology tools document is it is a living document, and you will have the opportunity to go back and see things that have been added. And in real time, you'll see any new tools that are on this technology tools document. Several of them relate to worship, but there are others that relate to cloud storage, productivity tools, Christian education. If you need a website or ways to create engaging presentations, this document will be very helpful for you. Now, I'm going to give this to you for free. Now, I normally charge for this document. No, I'm just kidding. I give it away for free, but you all are a special group, and I want to make sure that you have access to it to help you with your ministry tools. So the first tool for communications that has been very beneficial, and many of you may have heard of this tool if you have children or grandchildren. I know all of you who are watching are under 40, so you won't have any grandchildren, but for any of you who have children in the school system, you might have heard of this tool called Remind. And Remind is a way to send out mass text messages to a group if you need to quickly convey some information. Now, I'm a child of the church. I was born and raised in the church, in the Baptist church. If you cut me, I'll bleed Baptist blood. But one of the challenges as far as quickly communicating information of a change, as far as what the choir was going to wear or the praise team was going to wear, sometimes people would get the communication, but at that point, everything was written, or you would have to get on the phone and call everybody. Sometimes you would miss someone and they would show up with the wrong robe, or they would show up wearing the wrong color, or they would show up and there was a change in who was going to sing for that Sunday. Well, Remind, what it allows you to do, and it is free, and the website is remind.com. Remind is on the technology tools document that I'll share with you. Is it allows you to send for free text messages to up to 150 people at a time. So you don't have to create a text message where you can only get up to maybe 8 or 10 people in that conversation. You can create a group in Remind, and this is an example of how I communicate with the AV team at the ministry where I serve. Is you can create a group and you can add their cell phone numbers to the group, and you can send them messages. So I can send a new message, and you do get up to, I believe, 180 characters in the message that you send. In addition to the message that you can send, you can add attachments. Our deacons ministry uses this as a way to send out the agenda for the upcoming meetings, in addition to communicating any type of attire changes for when they are serving on, especially for communion or on First Sunday. They also have the ability, if you'd like to type your message for it to be translated in another language. And also you have the ability to schedule the message. So if you're thinking of something that you need to communicate later, but you don't want to forget, you can create the message, schedule it, and it will go out at the time to which you have designated that message to go out to your group. So Remind, and you can create multiple groups. So if you support the technology team with your ministry, or if you support other groups, then, or if there are multiple choirs as a part of your music ministry, then you can create multiple groups. And within each group, you can send a text message up to 150 people at a time. It can be done on the website like you see on the screen, or you can download the Remind app after you have created your free account, log in, And then from there, you can send as many messages as you'd like to help to maintain good internal connections and communications for your ministry. Another great tool for making sure that you get information that you need, especially if you need people to participate, to respond in a way that you know that they have signed up for a task or to bring something for a gathering. Another memory of mine growing up in the church, every year there would be a fellowship dinner. And in the old school church, now we have fancy announcements that we show on the screen, but there would be an announcing clerk who would get up and say, we have, or we're at the point of preparing for our fellowship dinner, and we need all of the men to bring a can of punch and all of the ladies to bring a covered dish. And so, of course, they assumed that the men couldn't cook, so they just had them to bring punch, or they would have them to bring ice. Then on the Saturday evening of the fellowship dinner, one of the challenges would be they would have too much chicken and not enough macaroni and cheese, or too many greens and not enough rice, because they just opened the door for everybody to bring something. And then they eventually transitioned to a paper sign up. But now there's a tool that allows you to, as if you are wanting people to sign up, or if you want them to volunteer, then you can use a tool called Sign Up Genius. Sign Up Genius is a free tool that you can create an online sign up document for people to go online, or you can send the link of the sign up that you create on this free website. You can place the link in an email, and when people click on that link in the email, they can then whatever you want them to sign up for example, in this sign up, this was the July worship participant sign up roster for last year, where different roles were assigned or made available, and it was scheduled out for the entire month. And the ministers had the opportunity to go online and pick a date and a slot. And the good thing is everyone can see everyone's response as to who has already picked that slot. And you can have multiple slots for a particular role, or if you're planning for robe fittings and there are certain times that people need to sign up to get their measurements, then you can use Sign Up Genius as a way to be able to do that. And again, it's free, and it will also send a reminder when it is a day or 2 days before the action is supposed to happen, whatever they're supposed to bring or whatever they are supposed to do in service as a part of what they signed up to do. So that Sign Up Genius, great tool. It's easy to navigate. It's easy to create a sign up once you create an account on the website. So in addition to Sign Up Genius, there are some great tools that can help you to be more efficient through one of my favorite platforms, and that is through Google. Many of us have Gmail accounts, and we aren't maximizing the power of what that Gmail account can do. It is more than just email. It is more than just sending and receiving messages through our Gmail account. But within a free Gmail account, there are several tools that you can use, and I'll expound on them during this session, as far as if your ministry needs a way for free video conferencing, you can do that with Google, which I'll talk about. If you happen to need a website and you would like to start off with something free to get you started, Google has that as a part of their platform. You can also create online forms. So since we're not gathering in person and it's hard for there to be a sign up, or if you want to do a survey for people to fill out a paper survey, then there is a way through Google that can be done. And so one of the first tools with Google that they offer is a platform called Google Drive. And many of you have already heard of Google Drive or use it or have heard it mentioned before. It is similar to Dropbox, which was one of the first online cloud storage tools that came on the market that most of us have heard of. But if you've never heard of Google Drive is a way for you to store documents online. If you're anything like me, jump drives, I'll lose. And I know you all are too young to know, but before online storage with Google Drive and before jump drives, which again, I lose or I'll break, but the old school of computer storage, there was something called a floppy disk. You all have never heard of a floppy disk, I know, but let me just tell you. A floppy disk was a 5.5-inch disk that was literally floppy because when you waved it, it would flop around, and it had a hole in the middle that you would stick into a computer, and it would only hold a few files on it before the disk was full. And then things started to advance, and then the floppy disk that was 5.5 inches became smaller to 3.5 or so inches, and it was harder and it stored more information. Then, of course, we got into CDs and then jump drives. Now we have online storage that through Google, through a Gmail account, you have for free 15 gigabytes of storage. If you don't know what gigabytes are, that's a lot of storage that you can store Word documents, PowerPoints, pictures, videos online. And that way, no matter where you access your Gmail, you have access to your online documents. So if you on your computer at home, you need to access your documents, or if you're on your computer at work, as long as you log into that same account, you'll have access to all of your documents. Not only for you to store documents, but also for you to share, which I'll talk about as well. But one of the great things that Google Drive does that Dropbox doesn't do, or Box, which is another online tool, doesn't do, or OneDrive of Microsoft. I like Microsoft too, but this is one thing that their online storage does not do. It gives you the ability to take documents, older documents, maybe something you typed up back in the day and you don't have it on as a document, like a Word document that you can type on. Google Drive will let you take an older document that was a PDF and you can convert it. Let's say you want to change some information on it, and you don't want to retype the whole thing. And this works great for those who write sermons and may have had sermons from the days when you printed out your sermon and you had to tear off the ends that have the holes in it from the dot matrix printer. Again, y'all are too young for this, but I'm just giving you a little bit of old school technology here. But you don't have the original on the computer to make changes. Google Drive lets you convert documents. I helped a mother of the church who had recipes that she wanted to get published into a book, but they were all handwritten. We scanned them to a computer and then we uploaded them to Google Drive, and we were able to convert them in a way where her handwritten recipes turned into typed text. Y'all want me to show you how to do that, don't you? I thought so. So let me give you an example. Here is a document. And this is something from my work files about creating internet web zones. And this is foreign language for many people who aren't in IT, but web zones allow you to partition how much internet strength is available in certain parts of a building. But I wanted to change some of this information, but I didn't want to retype it all over again. And I don't have the original that was on Microsoft Word. So I took this paper document, I scanned it. You can also use your phone to take pictures of documents. And if you have the Google Drive app, you can upload the picture that you take to your Google Drive on your phone. But I can take this document and convert it to typed text. So if you have manuscripts, if you have songs, if you have things both handwritten and typed, but don't have them for on your Microsoft Word, or you don't have them on your computer, you can take them and it will it'll type it over for you. So to do that, I'm going to right click on the document, go to open with, and I'm going to select Google Docs. Google Docs is their version, Google's version of what Microsoft Word does. So in a few seconds, it's going to convert the document that I couldn't type on to a version that has the ability for me to add information. So if I wanted to add the date, or any other information. Now, in converting some of the text, because the document was kind of blurry, did come through with a font that was off or a letter that might have been missing, but it does save the time from having to type the document all over again. So if you have handwritten documents that you want to convert, just know that the handwriting has to be legible in order for the system to recognize the handwriting. So just know that. So if your handwriting isn't the best, just know that you might have to spend a little time going through and making sure that it captured the letters in the correct way. So I think that's a great time saver. For me, it was a game changer, and it helped me to support my pastor, Pastor Flippin, with being able to take a lot of sermon manuscripts from many years ago, and now they are all digitized by using Google Drive. Another tool of Google in Google Drive is the ability to create documents. Word documents on the computer, you have to save every so often in order for your information not to be lost. Google's tool does the same thing that Microsoft Word does. Is called Google Docs. And a Google document, such as this one, looks just like a Word document. I don't have to save it. It saves automatically. So if I'm typing on this document, and I'm sure many of you could attest to this statement, I'm going to take a much needed vacation in July for at least a week. So let's say this was a document that you wanted others to type on. Then you could click on share. And when you click on share, it will give you a link that you can send to someone via email. And when they get that link, they will have the ability to type on it. So if I click on share, now I'm using a business version, so I have an additional step. But if you're using a free Gmail version, you can just click on copy link. And if you wanted someone to be an editor where they can type onto it, you would select editor. If you want them just to view it, you would just keep it at viewer. And when you copy this link and put it into an email, they will either, if they're a viewer, whatever you type onto it, they will see and only see. But if they are an editor, they can also type onto the document. So how is this beneficial? How is this helpful? What good is this? If you're collaborating on an event, if you are working together to put together a plan for your ministry, for, let's say, technology, or a worship plan, or even a worship budget, then you can, in lieu of having to email documents back and forth, which, of course, in that process, for many documents get lost in email, you can send the email and have the link in at one time. And within the document, everyone can make changes in one document versus emailing them back and forth. Because I know for me, that's a headache. And I'm sure that can be the case or has been the case for many of you. So this allows for collaboration, and it also allows for you to save your documents online without having to worry about saving them on your computer. If you need it as a Word document or need it as a PDF, you can download it as such in the file area and go to download, and you can download it as a Word document or as a PDF. So in addition to Google Docs, Google Drive has similar tools for productivity, such as Sheets, which is like Excel, and it also has the ability to share it. So if you're doing a spreadsheet of some sort and you need others to work on it, then you can do that with Google Sheets. Likewise, with presentations, you can use Google Slides to collaborate on presentations. So if I'm responsible for a slide in a presentation and I have two other counterparts, colleagues who need to participate in creating the presentation, I can share it with them with a link, just like I did with the Google Doc. And when they click the link and you've made them an editor in the sharing process, then they can also type onto that presentation. And then from there, everyone who needs to participate in that presentation had the ability to do their part by virtue of using the sharing feature in Google Documents. So please, I encourage you to, if you're not already using Google Documents, to please begin to use them. And they will, I believe, will help your ministry in a great way to be more efficient and to transition from a lot of paper in order to get things done. So now, if you want to go to the next level with Google, Google provides for churches. And if you don't remember anything I say, take this information down. Google provides, if you have a Gmail account, that's a great place to start. But if you would like to use the paid version of what businesses have to pay for the advanced version of the Google tools, then Google provides for free. I'll say it again. Google provides for free the business version of their tools. One is, and it's called Google for Nonprofits. And one of the tools that you get more space in your Google Drive. So for free, you get 15 gigs. I believe you get double that space to store more documents, and you have the ability to create multiple accounts for your ministry members. We use it at Cascade, and for our small groups, I have the capacity to create as many Google accounts for them to use the free video conference tool for those small groups to meet. And that's done through Google for Nonprofits. You fill out a simple application. You provide for them your nonprofit status, your IRS information in that regard. And within a couple of days, if there aren't any questions or more information required, then they will walk you through how you can set up a free Google for Nonprofits for your organization. And many churches, nonprofits have taken advantage of this during the pandemic. So you definitely want to make sure that you explore that. And again, Google Meet, as I've just mentioned, it does come with a Gmail account. This is a free video conferencing tool. Of course, Zoom is, in my opinion, the granddaddy of video conferencing tools, of all of the bells and whistles that it offers. However, Google Meet is a pretty close free alternative. So if you need a free way to have a meeting and then not expire, the time expire after 40 minutes, if you're using a free Zoom account, then Google Meet, if you're wanting to have meetings to do some worship planning, or if you're wanting to meet just to prepare what your calendar for 2022 is going to look like as you, or even the latter part of this year, as you are considering, or your ministry is considering reentry to the building, then Google Meet is a great tool that you can use for video conferencing. Again, with a Google for Nonprofits account, you can create as many Google accounts for ministry leaders for them to have their own Google Meet account for them to create meetings and for them to have opportunities for video conferencing if they don't have their own Zoom account. Zoom, for many ministries to have multiple accounts, can become somewhat pricey, but for small meetings, especially if it's just maybe the leadership of a group, then Google Meet it can work for larger gatherings, but it works pretty well for smaller gatherings. Again, we use it for our small groups. So those are some ways as far as internal connections and ways for ministries to collaborate, for there to be tools to help in that regard. And again, this will be on the technology tools document that I'll provide access to during the second part of the session for what a friend we have in technology. So transitioning over to some additional technology tools, which I believe help with our external connections, being able to let people know and share what great things are happening in our ministries, to let other ministries or to connect with ministries who may be in our area or even beyond our area, but just having ways for people to know exactly what is going on. And that could be done in multiple ways. So one way that has been very helpful for several ministries during the pandemic, if they didn't have one before, was an e-newsletter. And an e-newsletter can be done in two tools. Both have free options. One is Constant Contact, and this is an example of our newsletter. And we've taken email addresses that we've gathered from when people check in on Sunday mornings, and they have completed our online check-in form, which I'll talk about using Google Forms for that, which is free. Also, from when we've had our parking lot services and we've used Eventbrite for people to register, all of the email addresses that have been gathered have then been placed into a distribution list. So if you're wanting to share information about your music ministry or that which is happening in your church in general, Constant Contact and another one, MailChimp, are both free options to be able to do that. Now, they do have subscription-based versions that allow more capabilities, but the free version allow for, if you have, I know for Constant Contact, under 500 email addresses to be able to send out messages from your free account. In addition to email communications and the good thing too, also you can create multiple groups. So if you have a group of churches in the surrounding area that you want to share information, or if you want to reach out to other cities, then you can use this and you can create groups to be able to do that within Constant Contact. Now, of course, social media is the premier way to connect with people beyond those who are a part of your ministry. Of course, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram are all ways for people to connect with your ministry. And so you definitely want to make sure that you are maximizing those opportunities, at least by posting on your social media for your church. And some music ministries have sub pages that are a part of their ministry. They have a page specific just for the music ministry. Then you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping the information current, that you're posting at least twice a week, if not more often, and make sure that you don't if people are reaching out, that you respond, whether they send you a direct message or whether they are or they post a comment on a particular graphic, and I'll talk about graphics, but make sure that you are using social media as a way to connect with ministries or connect with people in your external connections. One way to manage social media, and I suggest that you have a social media account, at least for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. YouTube is great, of course, if you are streaming and making sure that you have that as a platform for streaming. And we'll talk about streaming in part 2, is that you have at least Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Those are 4 vital ones. And you can use a tool called Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE.com. Hootsuite, they have a free version that will allow you to connect 3 social media channels to those to Hootsuite. What that does, it allows you to schedule any post at one time, and that way you don't have to worry about trying to remember to post something. You can schedule it ahead of time, and when you schedule it ahead of time, it will go out to all of the social media channels that you would like for that graphic or that post to be sent. So if you want a graphic advertising a virtual music symposium or a panel discussion on the future of music in the church, then you can post it on your social media tool, Hootsuite, and it will go to all of those channels when you have designated the time for it to go. And again, it has a free version for 3 social media channels. It does have a subscription to do some more to do more advanced things, but at a very basic level, Hootsuite is a great way to manage social media for your ministry, organization, or even personally if you're promoting some individual work that you're doing or a business that you're doing for yourself. It is a great tool to be able to do some scheduling. And also, I suggest that you devise a social media plan, or at least a calendar that shows when you're going to post different things to the social media of your church or your organization. You can do that through a Google document, the document that you saw where I typed on that I'm going to take a vacation during the month of July. You can list out dates in a month on that document, share it with a group who would be involved in the social media planning, or who could help with knowing what is good to post when on social media. And then they can add what you might not be thinking of that needs to be added. Oh, yes, Father's Day is the 3rd Sunday in June. So we need to have on our social media how people can sign up to submit their pictures for it to be shown on the screen in June. So in addition to Hootsuite, you can use Google Docs as a way to help plan out your social media even before it's scheduled in Hootsuite, because you might not have the graphic or all of the information yet to post it or to schedule it in Hootsuite. But in your plan, you can at least have that as a placeholder as you're thinking about what needs to be added, or the details regarding what you would ultimately post on social media using Hootsuite as the tool. So to add to your social media to make it look more professional, if you are wanting to design graphics, or if you want to get some flyers or ways to just bring life to your social media, then you can use, there are 2 tools. Many of us know about Canva. Canva, Canva.com is a free tool. It does have a subscription as well, where you can create basic graphics. You can do presentations as well. But if you need flyers, there are templates here that will allow you to make flyers for free for whatever event you might be having or whatever needs to be promoted at your church. Now, one of my favorite, and Canva is easy to use. Canva is very user friendly. Its control panel is pretty easy to navigate. But my ultimate favorite is Poster My Wall. And that website is postermywall.com. You might already be familiar with Poster My Wall, but the great thing about Poster My Wall is there are many templates here that are already church friendly. So if you are planning a virtual revival, or if you are doing something for the pastor's anniversary, or if you're doing something for the music ministry, then there's a category here for church. If you click that category, there are already templates designed for many common church events. And so it would just be a matter of, like, for the Father's Day service, changing out the information that would make it specific to your ministry. And then you have a graphic ready to go that you can then post in Hootsuite and then schedule it to go out on your social media platforms. So for graphics, Canva, Poster My Wall, both are great tools. And again, Poster My Wall does have a church flyer category designated specifically for ministry events that the templates could be then just transformed to be specific to your respective ministry. So I want to go back to Google Drive, and in addition to the tools that we shared before, Google Drive, Google Sheets, which is the spreadsheet tool, and Google Slides, which is the presentation tool, Google Drive also has the wonderful benefit of what is called Google Sites. If your church needs a website, or if your organization, or if you need a website for your own ministry or that which you do professionally, you can, as a starting point, use Google Sites as a way to create a free website. And again, I say that is a free website. Now, if you want to get a domain name that would be yourorganization.com or yourchurch.com, you can get that through GoDaddy and connect it with your site in Google. Google Sites will have whatever you call the site .googlesites.com. But if you just want to have a place to get a site that's free, now if you get a domain name, usually domain names are about sometimes they range from about $5 a year to about $12 a year if it's not a highly sought after name. But even if you decide that you don't want to do that just yet, you can in Google Drive create a Google site. I'm going to show you an example of one that was used for a women's conference at Cascade where I serve, and they wanted a way through Google to create a site that not only was free, but multiple people. And again, this was done through a Gmail account because they wanted to connect to all of their surrounding churches to share about what was going to be a part of this women's conference, for people to register, for people to know who were the speakers, and also for them to share videos and pictures about the planning of that event. So in Google Drive, in the new area where you saw earlier, the docs, sheets, and slides, I'll touch on forms as well. But in this sub menu nestled is a menu that includes Google Sites. And Google Sites, you can create one for free, but I'm going to show you one that was already made so you can see the power of what a free site through Google can provide. So this is the editor side of it. If I were to pull up what it would look like from the viewer's end. So they did have a person who on their team created some graphics, some things they created in Poster My Wall, and then they chose a template in Google Sites, and they built out this site. And most of it is drag and drop. You just find your contents and drag it where you want it to go. Some things from YouTube, like this video, you can place in the site, and you can create multiple pages in the site. you can create a page for registration. You can create a page for, like on this one, agendas, speakers, about whatever other pages you might need on your site. And here is the long link of the site. They did have a domain name that they purchased to connect. This event was called Unfinished. And so the domain that they bought for $10 was unfinished2019.com. But it would take them to this free site. And by virtue of it being on Google, others who were on the leadership team were able to help with designing the site. So there was a person who managed how the template of the site, but in terms of the content, then there were others who were able to put in the pictures for the leadership team, and who was able to manage the registration for the event. The registration is closed, but this was where that person who was responsible for that was able to manage the registration. So this was their main way of connecting externally for this event that they wanted to publish and send out to their constituents to be able to get registration for this particular women's conference. And again, this was done with a Google site. And last but not least, Google Forms. Google Forms have really transformed how our level of efficiency has grown in our ministry, especially for paper processes, for documents that usually members before COVID would have to fill out coming up to the church, complete, turn in. Now those forms are done through Google Forms. One in particular is our event planning form. Before COVID, if a ministry or the music ministry was planning an event and they wanted to have it at the church, then they would come up to the church, to the office, and complete a project tracking form where they would put all the particulars, and then that document would then, the secretary would have to connect with the facilities team if they wanted tables. They would have to connect with the technology team if they needed AV, or they would have to connect with the finance team if checks needed to be cut. So to cut down on the paper and one person having to reach out to multiple people, Google Forms allows you to create forms online, and there is a way for it to automatically alert people if there is a role to which they need to play in the execution of the form once it's submitted. So I created on the church website a Google site, and that Google site is linked to this tab on the church website called Forms. So this is a Google site here. And on this page are multiple forms. So if the music and arts ministry was preparing for Holy Week and they wanted to put certain events on the calendar, then in lieu of coming to the church to complete a project tracking form, the paper version, now they can go here to this form and they could fill out all of the fields relative to the form. I won't go through the entire form, but it pretty much just outlines what the event is about and if they will need certain services, such as, again, facilities, or if they will need support from our communications team to promote the event and things of that nature. Once they hit submit, every group that needs support or it will be providing support will be alerted, and then that person who is the lead can then have the conversations needed to work out the details, and that's done through Google Forms. And there's so many tools to which our time for the sessions won't allow to go totally step by step, but there will be in the technology tools document opportunities for there to be quick guides to walk you through how the different tools work. So how to create a Google form, how to do the basics of a Google site, all of those will have quick videos or a quick guide linked to this technology tools document that will be shared with you as a way to stay connected and to use some of the resources that have been provided for your ministry to be more effective and efficient. Thus far, I hope that this information has been helpful to you. I know there have been a lot of tools that have been shared that may have your head swollen a little bit with trying to contain so much information, but having access to this recording, I hope it will give you the opportunity to go back and look at some of the things that from first glance you may have missed, and then you will and of course have my information to be able to ask questions as needed. And speaking of my information for this part 1 session, as we prepare for session 2, my information, if you have any questions, even in addition to the support document, you can email me at info@farmertechgroup.com. Again, that's info@farmertechgroup.com. My phone number is 404-600-1585. Again, 404-600-1585. And I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Farmer Tech Group. So please subscribe to my social media outlets to stay up to date as it relates to ministry technology. So what a friend we have in technology. This is part 1, and I am looking forward to part 2. So hang on, and I will see you over in the next session.